You open your eyes for the first time. The year is 80 AD. The place is Rome. You don't know it yet, but you've just arrived at the absolute peak of the Roman Empire. The bad news? You aren't the son of a senator. You aren't even a free citizen. You are born a verna, a slave born within the household of a wealthy Roman master. Your first breath is a mix of expensive incense and the unmistakable stench of the Subura, Rome's most crowded slum. Welcome to the world. There's no Wi-Fi, no diapers, and your legal status is roughly equivalent to a very expensive toaster. By age 5, your education begins. While Roman noble kids are learning Greek and rhetoric, your curriculum is a bit more hands-on. You're learning how to scrub mosaic floors without chipping the tiles. Your mother, also a slave, whispers for you to keep your head down. In Rome, the paterfamilias, the male head of the household, has the legal power of vita necisque. That's Latin for life and death. If he decides he doesn't like the way you polished his sandals, he could technically have you executed. Talk about a high-stakes internship. Breakfast is a bowl of poles. It's a thick, bland porridge made of emmer wheat, salt, and water. If you're lucky, you get a splash of garum. Imagine fermented fish guts that have been sitting in the sun for months. The Romans put it on everything. It's the ketchup of the ancient world, if ketchup was made of nightmares. You're 10 years old now, and you've grown fast. You're tall, broad-shouldered, and have a jawline that could cut marble. This is actually bad news. In a world of 1 million people, you've been noticed. Your master, a mid-level bureaucrat with a gambling debt, looks at you and sees a walking bag of gold coins. At age 16, you're sold. You aren't going to a farm or a mine. You're bought by a man called a lanista. Think of him as a cross between a talent scout, a gym owner, and a human trafficker. He owns a Ludus, a gladiator school. You are marched through the streets of Rome, past the nearly finished Flavian amphitheatre. You know it as the Colosseum. It's massive, clad in gleaming travertine limestone, and it can hold 50,000 screaming fans. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and it's likely the place where you're going to die. You arrive at the Ludus Magnus, the great school, located right next to the Colosseum. The first thing you do is take the Sacramentum Gladiatorium. This is the gladiator's oath. You solemnly swear to be burnt, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. It's not exactly the Employee of the Month handbook you were hoping for. Life in the Ludus is surprisingly organized. You aren't thrown into a dark pit. You're treated like a high-stakes investment. You're put on a very specific diet. You are now a hordearius, or barley man. You eat a massive amount of boiled barley and beans. Why? Not to get six-pack abs, but to get fat. A thick layer of subcutaneous fat protects your vital organs from shallow sword cuts. You're basically building a biological suit of armor made of carbs. You also get better medical care than 90% of the people living in Rome. The lanista hires the best doctors, including guys like Galen, who will literally become the father of modern anatomy because if you die in training, he loses money. You're the first-century version of an NFL player, except the concussion protocol involves a literal hammer. Training is brutal. Your teacher is a doctor, an ex-gladiator who survived enough fights to retire. You don't start with a real sword. That would be too easy. You start with a rudis, a heavy wooden practice sword, and you spend hours stabbing a palus, a 6-foot wooden post buried in the ground. If your footwork is off by an inch, the doctor whacks you with a cane. "Move like a threx, not a sack of flour," he screams. The doctor decides your specialty based on your build. Because you're big and strong, he makes you a murmillo. You'll be wearing a massive bronze helmet with a fish-shaped crest, carrying a heavy rectangular shield called a scutum, and wielding a gladius, the short sword that conquered the world. Your armor includes a manicae, a heavy leather and metal guard for your right arm, and a ochria, a metal shin guard for your left leg. You feel like a tank, but a tank that's sweating through 3 gallons of water an hour under the Mediterranean sun. You spend 2 years in the Ludus. You learn how to take a hit without flinching. You learn how to kill with efficiency. You learn the gladiator's step, a rhythmic, intimidating shuffle. You've become a professional. You aren't a slave anymore. You're a performer in the world's most violent theatre. One evening, the lanista walks into the training yard. He's holding a tablet. The Emperor Titus is hosting 100 days of games to celebrate the opening of the Colosseum. Thousands of animals have already been slaughtered. Now, the crowd wants the main event. They want the men of the sword. He points at you. You're on the card for tomorrow. Opening ceremony. Your heart hammers against your ribs. You've seen the veteran gladiators. You've seen the scars they carry. You've also seen the libertinari, the masked men dressed as Charon, the ferryman of the dead, who dragged the corpses out of the arena with meat hooks. That night, you are given the Cena Libera, the free banquet. It's a tradition where gladiators are given a massive, luxurious feast the night before they fight. People are actually allowed to come in and watch you eat, like you're an animal at a zoo. Some fans ask for your autograph. Others place bets on how many minutes you'll last before your throat is slit. You can't taste the roasted peacock or the vintage wine. All you can think about is the sand. Morning comes. The sun rises over the Calian hill. You are marched through an underground tunnel that leads directly from the Ludus Magnus into the belly of the Colosseum. You can hear it before you see it. It's a low, vibrating roar that shakes the stone walls. It's the sound of 50,000 Romans screaming for blood. You stand in the dark of the tunnel, your helmet visor narrowing your vision to 2 small grids of light. The smell of sawdust, wild animals, and fear is overwhelming. An iron gate begins to creak upward. But what you don't know yet is that your opponent isn't a novice like you. He's a retiarius, a man with no armor, a giant net, and a 3-pronged trident who hasn't lost a fight in 3 years. The gate hits the top. The sunlight blinds you. It's time to step onto the sand. You step out onto the sand. It's called harina, which is just the Latin word for sand. They use a thick layer of it for one very specific, very gross reason. It's excellent at soaking up the litres of blood about to be spilled. Think of it as giant, outdoor kitty litter for human tragedies. The roar of 50,000 people hits you like a physical wall. The heat is intense, the sun bouncing off the white marble tiers of the Colosseum. You look across the arena and see your opponent. He's a retiarius. While you're a murmillo encased in 40 pounds of bronze and leather, this guy is basically wearing a loincloth and a fancy shoulder guard called a galerius. He's carrying a weighted net and a 3-pronged trident. You look like a tank. He looks like a very angry fisherman. The summa rudis, the head referee wearing a white tunic with purple stripes, raises his wooden staff. This is the only guy in the building who can tell you what to do. He signals the start. There are no bells, no round one girls. Just the sudden, terrifying realization that the fisherman wants to turn you into a human shish kebab. The retiarius circles you. This is the classic Roman matchup, the slow, heavily armed fish, that's you, because of your helmet crest, versus the fast, lightly armed fisherman. He throws the net. You duck well, you try to. Your helmet weighs 15 pounds and limits your vision to 2 small perforated circles. You feel the weighted edge of the net clip your shoulder. If that net catches your helmet, it's game over. He'll drag you around like a sack of grain until you're too tired to fight back. You lung forward with your scutum, your heavy rectangular shield. You use it like a battering ram, slamming it into his chest. He staggers back. You've got him. You prepare to thrust your gladius into his unprotected ribs. But the sand is slippery. You trip over a discarded piece of armor from a previous fight. You go down on one knee. In a split second, the trident's tines are at your throat. This is it, the moment every gladiator dreams of and dreads. You don't beg. You don't scream. That would ruin your brand. Instead, you raise your left hand with your index finger extended the ad digitum. It's the universal I surrender sign of the ancient world. The stadium goes silent. Everyone looks at the editor, the guy paying for the party. Since the Emperor Titus is in the building, the decision is his. He looks at the crowd. Now, forget what you saw in the movies. The thumbs down doesn't necessarily mean death. Historians actually argue about pollis verso, the turned thumb. Some think a thumb pressed down meant put the sword down, life, while an upward or outward thumb meant draw the sword, death. Titus sees that you fought well. You weren't a coward. You just had a bad day on the sand. He gives the signal for missio mercy. You get to live. You're escorted out through the Porta Sana Vivaria, the gate of life. If you had died, you'd be dragged out the Porta Libertinensis by a guy dressed as a death god. You definitely prefer this exit. Back at the Ludus, you're a minor celebrity. You didn't win, but you survived a match against a veteran. This starts the gladiator influencer phase of your life. Believe it or not, successful gladiators were the superstars of Rome. Your name is scratched into the walls of the city in charcoal graffiti, the girl's heartthrob, or the master of the shield. You even start a side hustle. The lanista collects your sweat and the scrapings of oil and dirt from your skin using a tool called a strigil. He sells it in small vials to wealthy Roman women who use it as a facial cream or an aphrodisiac. Yes, you are literally selling eau de gladiator to the 1%ers. It's disgusting, it's weird, and it makes your owner a fortune. Over the next 5 years, you fight 20 times. That's a lot. Most gladiators only fight 2 or 3 times a year. You join a collegium, a gladiator burial club. You pay monthly dues so that if you do get stabbed in the neck, your buddies will give you a proper headstone and a funeral feast instead of tossing your body into the Tiber River. You've won 15 of those fights. You've killed 6 men. You don't think about them. You just think about the barley porridge and the dream of the rudis. Then it happens. You're 25 years old. You've just defeated a Thraex in a bloody 30-minute marathon of a fight. The crowd is chanting your name. The emperor stands up. He doesn't just give you a laurel wreath. He tosses something heavy and wooden onto the blood-soaked sand. It's the rudis, a wooden practice sword. It's the highest honor a slave can receive. It means you are officially manumitted. You are no longer a slave. You are a free man. You've earned your libertas through a mountain of scar tissue and a lot of luck. So, what do you do with your freedom? You're a celebrity with no other job skills. You could become a bodyguard for a senator or a trainer at the Ludus, but you've had enough of the sand. You take your prize money, the premium, which is a massive sum of denarii you've accumulated from your winning tips. You move to the countryside, near Pompeii. You buy a small vineyard. You spend your afternoons sitting in the sun, drinking wine that hasn't been watered down, and feeling the ache in your knees from years of heavy armor. You're one of the lucky ones. You're a retired gladiator in a world where the average life expectancy is about 30. The real history. While we think of gladiator fights as to the death every time, it was actually a regulated professional sport. Each match cost the host a fortune if a gladiator died because they had to reimburse the owner for the lost property, so mercy was common for skilled fighters. About 90% of gladiators survived their matches. However, the life was still brutal, short, and legally dehumanizing. You look at your wooden sword hanging above the fireplace. You realize you survived the most dangerous reality show in history. You don't have a pension, but you have your life. And hey, at least you never have to eat that fermented fish gut garum ever again. Well, maybe just a little. It is pretty addictive. Now, if you'll excuse you, you have some grapes to stomp. Being a Roman retiree is hard work, but at least nobody is trying to hit you with a trident today. Unless the neighbor's cat gets into the vineyard again. That thing is a menace.